next.
'Cause I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the deserts bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. Of travel I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. Been to Tullamore, Seymour, Lismore, Mooloolaba, Nambour, Roochdore, Kilmore, Marillaba, Birdsville, Emmaville, Wallaville, Connemara, Connemara, Strathround, Proserpine, Alladala, Darwin, Gingin, Lillaquen, Muckdilla, Wallumbilla, Bougainville, Cumberland, Ramakiller. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the deserts bare, man.
Well, this bloke hasn't been anywhere today because he's stuck at home doing radio interviews. Stephen Field, good morning to you and welcome to Dunkeld.
Thanks, boys. Thanks for having me on.
Very great pleasure, and I've just realised I didn't do the sponsorship announcements, but that's okay. We'll do them after we finish chatting to you. You were on the radio this morning talking to Robert Cameron about the very successful girls cricket team from Geelong who are making their debut in Premier 1. But this conversation, we are talking about your hometown of Dunkeld. Where is it? Tell us a bit about it. What goes on?
Well, it's the heart of Victoria, of course, Neil. And
oh, come on. Tiger, settle up.
Right at the southern foot of the Grampians, I suppose, is the best way to describe it. And on the way to Hamilton from Melbourne, if you like, on the Canal Highway. And a beautiful little spot in the Western District.
So if people were crossing the other way from, say, Warrnambool, what sort of direction would they go? If they kept going through Dunkeld, where would they end up?
Well, they continue on through to Halls Gap.
Yep, okay.
And then, so they follow through the mountain range there, the Sarah Mountains, and they'd end up at Halls Gap or on to Stawell and beyond.
Okay.
Eventually work their way through into the Wimmera.
So it's certainly in the heart of the Grampians region then?
It is, yes, and it's connected beautifully with the Great Ocean Road running right around through to Warrnambool, and then that drive then through into the Grampians from Warrnambool and beyond.
It certainly is very much the heart of the Australian wool industry too, and it's, the agricultural industry's changed quite a lot, but definitely around Dunkeld in particular, it's somewhat corporatised as farming goes, but still agriculture very much a part of the town's fabric.
Absolutely, yeah, and you're exactly right. There's no doubt that wool was probably the primary industry for a long, long time, but farming certainly changed and developed quite a bit, and there's a lot more cropping and other enterprises that we probably wouldn't normally consider in this area, but cattle and wool are still very strong.
There was, I'm trying to think of the famous family, the Sierra Park. Is it? That's the merino stud that's not far from Dunkeld, from memory, is it?
That's right. A couple of famous studs up this way, Sierra Parks, Bill Crawford's and...
Crawford's, that's right, yes.
John Crawford, yeah, as well as, there's plenty of other stud farmers around the area as well who still continue in growing beautiful superfine merino wool.
Yeah, and it seemed odd that with the rainfall and climatic conditions, but obviously it's perfect for that because certainly there was a period of time where the Sierra Park wool produced there was as good as anywhere in the world, I'd imagine.
Exactly right. No, some of the finest wool around, spinners type wool, and the climate's interesting. It probably, as you head towards Warrnambool, certainly there's a little bit more rainfall, but you're generally in that sort of 27-inch rainfall. It's probably shouldn't talk inches these days a year around this area, and so it hungers off fairly quickly, which is just ideal for growing fine wool.
That's pretty wet though, isn't it? 27 inches, because Melbourne's 15 or 16, isn't it?
Melbourne would be 24.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a bit less than that. Okay. So the other thing that obviously plays an important part in your part of the world these days, Stephen, is tourism. I know there's a pub in your town that is reasonably well known for its food.
Absolutely. The Royal Mail Hotel is certainly a very, very well-known pub. It's won numerous awards around Australia as serving some of the finest food in the country, and it's generally fairly full, the restaurant, most nights, and with its accommodation and all the connectedness around it, so suppliers from local produce places and supporting businesses in the town as well. It really is a brilliant spot for people to call in and stay.
Steve, just on that, I mentioned about the corporatised farming. It's fairly well known. There's the same business model that owns a hotel, owns a lot of agriculture around it. How has that changed the community fabric of the town?
Well, look, it's been overwhelmingly positive. It's brought a greater amount of infrastructure to the town for a start. So for a town this size, I'm guessing we're around about 700 or 800 at the moment in the town. it's meant that you've got a lot of things that probably larger towns don't have in terms of normal infrastructure. But apart from that, it's certainly brought a lot of employment to the area. So many of the old farmhouses and things were renovated as part of that sort of development, and they've got families living in them. The school is continuing to grow. There was a period of time probably where the school would drop back to around about 60 students, and now it's well over 100 and growing. And I think the best dynamic out of it all is it's actually brought a lot of people who are young with young families into the area, and they generate a lot of energy and enthusiasm in a whole range of pursuits.
I think one of the things that Rob and I bang on a lot about is the importance of having vibrant sporting communities in these towns, and obviously if you've got young people coming, it's probably a bit easier to stump up a football team and a cricket team. Yeah,
exactly. And the football club, it's a combination of Glen Thompson and Dunkeld, or the football netball club. They've been very, very successful and consistently sort of making finals in both football and netball, and produce a lot of really talented young players. And of course the cricket club, known as the Grampians Cricket Club, they run 3 senior men's teams, a women's team, girls team, a few boys teams, and so when you consider the size of the town, sport is absolutely number one for a lot of people, but it's certainly providing a lot for the younger generation.
And as you and I well know, the character building aspect of sporting groups and communities in general is very, very important. So it's nice to see that although there's been changes to the Dunkeld structure, it's actually had a positive community effect rather than damaging it.
Yeah, and Dunkeld caters for all types. There's very active artistic group. There's we've got beautiful walks in the Grampians area there, and so now with the construction of the actual Grampians trails from Dunkeld through to Halls Gap, or just past Halls Gap, there's any number of walkers and campers and other people who are now coming in and staying in those trails and overnight and enjoying Dunkeld and the other towns surrounding as well.
I really like 2 words to follow after the word Grampians, and that is wine region. And I know that, in fact, there's a very, very fine podcast that I know something about called the Grampians Wine Podcast, and that has obviously wineries all over the Grampians region, both northern Grampians and southern Grampians. Is there any nearby Dunkeld?
So not right in Dunkeld, but certainly once you head to Pomona, which is not really that far away,
yep.
Halls Gap, of course, all around that area there, there's a stack of different wineries, and the Great Western variety has been a popular one with people over many years, and Bests and places like that. So I do know that I don't mind a glass of red as well, and there's some fantastic sort of functions held around that sort of Pomona Halls Gap area regularly involving wine and food and festivals.
Check out the Grampians Wine Podcast. You'll recognise one of the voices that's on it fairly frequently. And the most recent series, we actually tasted wines from the region, and they opened them and tasted them on a podcast, which is quite unusual. So check that one out.
I'm not a big fan of the gambling aspect of the horse racing industry, but I am a fan of what the industry brings, particularly at country venues. And the Dunkeld Cup is one of the more famous races on the calendar. It's attracted a lot of interest over a lot of years. In fact, it was so popular one year there was 2 Dunkeld Cups held, and a friend of mine has one of them in his cupboard at home. Is that still a big part on the social calendar there?
Massive, and sadly the last few years with COVID, and then last year we had a very, very wet spring, as you might remember. The races haven't been on for 3 years, so you can imagine the energy building for this season. So November the 18th, I think, is the date where you'll probably find upwards of 10,000 people descending on Dunkeld from all number of places around the state and country, and it really is a monumental day in the town each year, and I know that there's a lot of enthusiasm building for that. In fact, there's a couple of other little things happening around it. And the Friday evening prior to it, there's going to be a local street cricket competition, which is basically a reinvigoration of the backyard competition that was held here for many, many years. So that'll involve quite a few people getting together and enjoying each other's company. But that whole weekend, in terms of accommodation and food and, I suppose people getting together from, and in a lot of ways it's people who have been a part of Dunkeld in the past who come back and make that their type of reunion.
Well, Stephen, it's sounding very tempting to get up there and have a glass of red and something nice to eat at the Royal Mail Hotel. I will look forward to catching up with you at some stage down there. Thanks for being part of Regional Roundup this morning.
It's a pleasure, and look forward to you dropping in.
Thanks,
mate.
Steve. All the best.
Thanks. See ya.